Throne of Glass is a young adult high fantasy novel series by the New York Times best-selling author Sarah J. Maas, beginning with the inaugural entry of the same name. Partly inspired by Cinderella, the story follows the journey of Celaena, a teenage assassin in a corrupted kingdom with a tyrannical ruler. As the tale progresses, Celaena forms unexpected bonds, and uncovers a conspiracy amidst her adventures. The series has appeared on the New York Times bestseller list. Overview: Throne of Glass follows Celaena Sardhian, an 18-year-old assassin in the kingdom of Idalan. Upon being imprisoned by the rulers, she accepts an offer to compete with other killers in a glass castle for a chance to serve the kingdom. This leads her to form unexpected bonds with Chael, the captain of the guard, and Dorian, the crown prince of Idalan. In time, Celaena is drawn into a conspiracy and a series of battles, leading to discoveries surrounding both the kingdom and herself. Development Background Sarah J. Maas has cited Disney's Cinderella as an inspiration for writing Throne of Glass. While viewing the scene in which the heroine flees the ball, Maas found the soundtrack way too dark and intense. This led her to reimagine a number of details. The music fit much better when I imagined a thief an assassin. Fleeing the palace, she said. But who was she? Who had sent her to kill the prince? Who might the prince's enemies be? A powerful, corrupt empire, perhaps? Originally known as Queen of Glass, the story initially appeared on fictionpress.com. Bloomsbury acquired the novel in 2010, and purchased 2 additional Throne of Glass novels in 2012. Publicist Emma Bradshaw noted Maas' huge online following, particularly in the US. Additionally, Throne of Glass became the first Bloomsbury children's novel to be featured on NetGalley.com, attracting requests from all over the world. During the story's time on fictionpress.com, artist Kelly DeGroot drew a map of the tale's world, Irelia, and shared it with Maas. Bloomsbury later hired DeGroot to draw the map which appears in the opening novel. Following its acquisition by Bloomsbury, the story went through a number of revisions prior to publication. Regarding the tale's development, Maas stated, "In the 10 years that I've been working on the series, Throne of Glass has become more of an original epic fantasy than a Cinderella retelling, but you can still find a few nods to the legend here and there." Characters. In an interview prior to the series' debut, Maas discussed the process of creating her protagonist. The story's teenage heroine, Celaena Sardhian, is introduced as an orphan who was raised and trained by an assassin. She is largely characterized as skilled, arrogant, and witty. While shaping her protagonist, Maas was inspired by the heroism of Arwen from The Lord of the Rings, and by the characterization of Velma Kelly from Chicago. Maas has stated that the latter's arrogance and fierceness made me want to write about a woman like her, about a woman who never once said sorry for being talented and determined and utterly in love with herself. The author ultimately designed Celaena as a highly capable character whose talents also form a basis for numerous faults. In interviews preceding the series' release, Maas noted her heroine's issues with impatience and vanity. She also suggested that Celaena would grow while adjusting to her new role. In addition to Celaena's skills as an assassin, Maas wanted the character to have several traits and hobbies befitting her age, including a fondness for shopping, books, and fine dining, as well as a penchant for getting into trouble. In creating the relationship between Celaena and Chael, Maas gave the characters a number of differences. As the story begins, Chael is introduced as a strict and ethical captain, while Celaena is presented as a morally ambiguous assassin. According to the author, this contrast contributes to Chael's character development as his bond with Celaena grows. Amidst their experiences, Chael eventually comes to view her not just as a captive criminal, but also as a human being. This matter was also intended as the basis for a complicated romance. While writing the novel, Maas envisioned Chael as a character who had always seen the world in black and white, and concluded that Celaena just throws a wrench in that. Prince Dorian is presented as a suitor for Celaena as well. However, his background ultimately leads to them facing obstacles of their own. Novels. Release =publicity =, in anticipation of the series' debut, Bloomsbury released e-book editions of 4 prequel novellas: The Assassin and the Pirate Lord, The Assassin and the Desert, The Assassin and the Underworld, and The Assassin and the Empire between January and July 2012. Throne of Glass was previewed by Publishers Weekly in February, while the book trailer premiered on MTV.com in May. Additionally, film option rights were acquired by Creative Artists Agency. Reception Throne of Glass has received generally positive reviews, making its debut on the New York Times bestseller list with the release of the second novel, Crown of Midnight. A review from Publishers Weekly lauded the series' opening as a strong debut novel. The review went on to state, "This is not cuddly romance, but neither is it grim. Celaena is trained to murder, yet she has an unregistered trademark. She lost her taste for pretty dresses or good books, and a gleam of optimism tinges her outlook." Maas tends toward over-description, but the verve and freshness of the narration make for a thrilling read. Kirkus stated, "A teenage assassin, a rebel princess, menacing gargoyles, supernatural portals and a glass castle prove to be as thrilling as they sound." With regard to the protagonist, Kirkus noted that Celaena is still just a teenager trying to forge her way, giving the story timelessness. She might be in the throes of a bloodthirsty competition, but that doesn't mean she's not in turmoil over which tall, dark and handsomely titled man of the royal court should be her boyfriend and which fancy gown she should wear to a costume party. The review concluded that the story's commingling of comedy, brutality and fantasy evokes a rich alternate universe with a spitfire young woman as its brightest star. Throne of Glass was named Amazon.com's Best Book of the Month for Kids and Teens in August 2012. Whitney Kate Sullivan of Romantic Times stated that Maas' fantasy world is one of the most compelling that this reviewer has visited all year. The assassin heroine's growth and the multi-layered secondary characters are amazing. Serena Chase of USA Today applauded the story's love triangle, and noted that Maas excels at world-building, spicing up this unusual take on the Cinderella story by injecting myths, fairy tales and religious traditions with the magic of a fresh and faulted world. Whereas many authors rely on geographic detail to build their worlds, Maas' environment is more politically driven and her characterizations are deftly drawn to support that sort of structure. Chase also commended Maas for creating a truly remarkable heroine who doesn't sacrifice the grit that makes her real in order to do what's right in the end. As of May 2015, the series has sold nearly 190,000 copies in print in the United States. References